I will never be on the wrong side again. Is there a movie where you heard that same line? Braveheart. Robert the Bruce told that to his father after he betrayed William Wallace. And when I saw that film, it was the exact same words, word for word. I will never be on the wrong side again. And I honestly believe that if we put the right information in front of the right people, the sheriffs and police officers of this country and in your county, you got to make sure that they read this and see this proof. It's only 49 pages. Nobody has an excuse not to read this. Who needs to read it first? You do. Okay? And then you share it and you spread it. And then you make sure that they have no excuse after they read it. And you get back with them. And you ask them to write down the answer on page 16. There's a little homework assignment. We're going to go over that in just a second. Well, after that, now I'm a constitutional nut and a right-wing nut because I believe in the Declaration of Independence and the Founding Fathers and the Second Amendment. And I tell you, the Second Amendment was so important to us and freedom, and the Founding Fathers put it as the Second Amendment to make sure that it would protect the First and everything else. And it wasn't so we could hunt geese that fly over during our meetings. And it wasn't, I never was a member of the NRA before this. I was not a hunter. I've never been hunting in my life. I wouldn't know what to do with that goose if I shot it. I've never been hunting. But my passion for freedom and the right to keep and bear arms is only about liberty. And what the original militia of this country did with the right to keep and bear arms. And ultimately in America, the people who have the final say in this government is us. And we can't have that final say. And we can't throw off evil government if we're disarmed. And now, federal government, do you know why we will not disarm? And you know why the sheriffs in this country should not allow any more gun control? Because we will not be disarmed. We are the ultimate authority in this country. If you read the Constitution, and especially the Declaration of Independence, you'll see who's in charge of this country. And it's not corrupt Washington, D.C. politicians. It's us. And our main servant, our chief protector, the sheriff, is our employee to make sure that happens. And he has the authority and jurisdiction and our personal authority because he is the only law enforcement officer who is elected by, for, and of the people. All the others are bureaucrats. But anybody, any chief of police, and any official who has taken the oath has the same responsibility. It's just that the sheriff is the one that reports directly to you. And his history goes back 1,000 years. And now when the Brady bill came out when I was sheriff, I recognized it immediately as what it was. An unconstitutional mandate, an unfunded mandate, and forcing me to become a redcoat for the federal government. And this was the first time in history that legislation from Washington, D.C. forced your sheriff to work for them under threat of being arrested. Serious. There was no money attached, but there was a threat. And it said, whoever knowingly fails to comply with these provisions is subject to a $10,000 fine or a year in jail or both. Well, the first thing my lawyers did when we filed this on February 28, 1994 was get an injunction against the federal government from coming in my home at 1 o'clock in the morning, arresting me with my wife and children, yelling, "Where's Daddy going?" And so we got that injunction. And Janet Reno said, oh, well, that part of the Brady bill didn't apply to the sheriff, just the gun shop owners. Does that make you gun shop owners feel better? Well, the judge in our case where we got the injunction, you know what he told Janet Reno? He says, she doesn't get to change the law just because she writes a memo. So we filed this case, and then Sheriff Prince from Montana joined the lawsuit about 6 weeks later, and ultimately 7 of us filed this lawsuit. One from Texas, one from Vermont, one from Louisiana, one from Wyoming, and Mississippi. That was it. 7 out of 3,000 sheriffs across the country fought this all the way to the United States Supreme Court. And then Sheriff Prince and I ended up at the Supreme Court together in December of 1996. And on June 27th, 1997, the United States Supreme Court announced that the federal government exceeded their authority and that they cannot commandeer the office of the sheriff. And over in this decision, Mack versus U.S., Prince Mack versus U.S., it says state legislatures are not subject to federal direction. Don't you wish your state legislature knew that? Well, it's right here in plain sight. And it's as plain as the nose on your face. And the Supreme Court shouldn't have to tell your state that. Because we're not going along with this anymore. And we're going to know exactly why. And this is what Scalia actually quotes Madison in here. They become so intertwined, I don't know half the time if I'm quoting Madison or Scalia. But it's mostly Madison. And this is where it starts, and it gets really powerful. Quote, this is right out of the decision, and any of you can verify this. Just Google Mack versus U.S. and look at the Cornell University. You can see what each one said, each justice of the Supreme Court, what they said about this case. It was a 5-4 split. The great innovation of this design was that our citizens would have two political capacities, one state and one federal. And remember, it's right here on page 15 of the book. Two political capacities, one state and one federal. Each protected from incursions by the other. So who protects you from incursions from the federal government? Your state officials. Is the county a political subdivision of the state? Yes, it is. And do any of your county officials have this obligation just as much as the rest of the state does? Even more so. Why? Because your state's not doing it. Are they? Your state's not doing it. The state wants federal money. And can I please ask you something? Where does the federal government get money to hold over your head so you'll do everything they tell you? From you! So how do we stop that? We stop sending them our money. You know? And the state should tell us. The state should tell you to stop sending your money to Washington, D.C.